Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel, it's Cynicalex. And today I want to take a look at the three uniforms that we got in Infinity War for the villains. So that's Thanos, Corvis, and Proxima. Now we've already done a few of these for, Iron Man, Thor, Spider-Man, and the reaction from the community from you guys has been really positive. So I wanted to spice it up a little bit, and instead of just covering one in this video, I want to cover all three, because I don't necessarily have a lot to say about each one. I do have some updates for each uniform based on what I had previously said in the original top 10 list from a couple of days after the update. I've had more time to play with them, and I wanted to show some comparison clips for you guys so you can see the overall damage numbers. But we'll start off with Corvis because he's probably one of the more exciting members of the update, especially with this new uniform. So what has changed for him and what can you expect differently? Well, one of the biggest changes is in his summons. They now have two different types of summons, so you get more overall summons, and some of them are stronger. Additionally, you get the guard hit for 3 seconds, which is really helpful to maintain his survivability for a little bit longer. However, with the good comes the bad. There has been a glitch or a bug with the character that still has not been resolved. It's on Peekaboo, his 5th skill. It's supposed to apply an all attack, all defense, all speed buff. It does not apply the buff right now to Corvis or to his summons. So right now he's not performing at 100% maximum efficiency. The other changes that has been made to the character is that the big damage from his second skill, which used to be those 3 flaming pillar lanes, has been shifted. The second skill doesn't do great damage. It still maintains the energy tag, but a lot of the second skill damage has been shifted over to the third skill. Now the third skill is probably one of his most powerful attacks, so keep that in mind if you're trying to do lots of damage. It's really good against World Boss Ultimate especially. Now the other thing that you might notice is that the paralyze effect is gone. One of the best parts of Corvus's old uniform, even if you only had the character at 3 stars, was that Piercing Strike has a 3-second paralysis effect, which is great crowd control, and it's on a 3.5-second cooldown when you have 50% skill cooldown. So you can almost completely paralyze your opponents in Shadowland, for example, the entire fight. There's only a half-second gap between this skill. The new effect of the skill is just bleed, or so it says. Actually, if you play with the skill in Shadowland, you can see from the clip here, the paralysis effect is still there. It's hidden, and it applies on the very last strike, and it's one of Corvus's kind of shadow forms that comes out potentially from the halberd or from the glaive rather, and attacks and creates that paralysis effect. So this is a great skill, which is even better now that the paralysis applies at the end of the skill rather than at the beginning. So this is an excellent move now because you get the iframe at the beginning, and then at the end it paralyzes your opponent. Really, really strong ability. Overall, as you can see from the numbers here, with his uniform, he was clearing the first two enemies in this universal stage in about 9 seconds, 8 or 9 seconds. Without his uniform, he's clocking in at almost 15 seconds, so there's a huge gap in between his damage. In both clips, I skipped using the summons just because it takes a really long time to get them out, and then the damage can be a little bit hard to calculate and hard to hit consistently because they might go for one or they might split their damage 50-50. So I decided to just go with his regular skills, and then you can just calculate the clones in as extra damage. The other reason why this uniform is so good is because anytime you can buff a character that has summons, especially powerful summons like Kingpin or Loki or Corvis, that's a huge bonus. You're basically double dipping because the all attack and the all defense, it not only applies to Corvis, but it also applies to all of his summons. So that's a really big deal. Not to mention he's got a pretty decent uniform bonus. Next up we have Proxima, and I will admit that I was a little wrong, or I maybe overemphasized how good this uniform was for Proxima. I still think it's a good uniform. I still think that they changed around the skills enough. I really love the way that the character feels. When I play as Proxima now, it feels as though I'm playing as the World Boss Ultimate version of Proxima. There's so many similarities between this character's skills and the World Boss character skills that it feels very nice. It almost feels like another player when I'm fighting against World Boss Ultimate Proxima because it looks so similar to my Proxima. And I love the fact that they've gotten rid of the lag on her 5th skill, Midnight Sky. However, I may have over exaggerated how much more damage she's doing. She's definitely doing more, but at least in my Shadowland testing, she was clearing it in about the same amount of time with or without the uniform. Now, there's no question that her uniform, especially if you rank it up, does more damage than without a uniform. There's no way that 25% all attack can be ignored. I wouldn't mind, or I wouldn't, attempt to say that. But I will say that perhaps putting her at, I believe it was 3rd or 4th place on my top 10 list may have been a little bit too high, given how much more powerful other characters get. And besides the changes to the animations of her skills, and besides the damage bump, she really doesn't get a lot of other bonuses from this uniform. Yes, the penetration chance bumping to 50% is nice. Yes, the additional iframe is nice, but it may not be enough. It may not make her dynamic enough. She's still a very one-dimensional character. All damage and basically nothing else. No revive, no heal, no kind of big survivability change. So I just wanted to point that out and put that out there. The last one is Thanos, and I think Thanos is probably the most controversial right now. Look down at my potential real quick. Super sad that I'm struggling to get to 100%. Thanos has been a bit controversial because, one, he's the most expensive uniform in the game, and two, we expected it to be a huge buff over his Secret Wars uniform, and it's not, or at least it doesn't seem to be, but it is, but it's not. It's a little bit complicated, and I think a lot of people were hoping that it was going to be a smash because, of course, Thanos is a smash in Infinity War. It's his movie, and this uniform was just so beloved. We were okay with the price and the increased cost of crystals because this uniform just turned Thanos into a complete badass. And so we were kind of expecting him to go to stage 11 badass, and he kind of didn't. He moved more laterally, and so that's why I think a lot of people are disappointed. But there are some hidden features to this uniform that I think are very powerful that I wasn't able to touch on in the first iteration, or the first time I talked about this uniform. The biggest change that I want to point out to you guys is Titan Punch. With his old uniform or with his base kit, it says that it removes the active buff from the target. The active buff is just one buff, and these are buffs that the enemy that you're fighting is placing on themselves after the fight starts. So these are buffs from skills. These are buffs that trigger from 4-star passive effects. These are additional buffs that add to the character. Conversely, or differently, you have the text that reads removes all buffs. Now, the all buffs in caps is a very unique tag. Only 2 other characters in the game have this tag, Apocalypse and, more notably, Doctor Strange. And now you might know what this does. It removes every single buff the character has. It removes all of their active buffs that they've used from skills. It removes their tier 2 passive effect. It removes any kind of support passive effect like Shuri's tier 2 or Coulson's tier 2, and it removes the leadership bonus. It completely strips the character of any bonuses whatsoever. Additionally, and I'll show you now by jumping into a match, it strips off the Shadowland requirement. So very simply, we'll go into this stage right here. It is a speed advantage stage, and it's harder to notice because Thanos is a universal type, so he's able to do all stages anyways. If I had a female stage, I could show you more accurately, but I don't have one, and I don't know how many stages I would go up before I could get one. But although he's supposed to do reduced damage, and although universals will still do more damage, but reduced damage, you can see here that next to Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon's portraits, they had a blue sword. That blue sword is now gone because I've stripped them of all of their buffs. Now if I attack them, I will do full damage as if I were a speed type, or as if there was, well, I didn't do any damage there because there was a iframe, but I will do full damage regardless of whatever the requirement was. So if this was a stage that was asking for heroes, I could take that away. And so now you see Vision comes in, he's got the blue sword. I'm going to be able to take that blue sword effect away as soon as I hit him with the first skill, as soon as he's not iframing. And I can strip every single active buff from an enemy. This is a very powerful effect. Now, it's not going to be as broken or as helpful to you as, for example, Doctor Strange's remove all buff effect, because Doctor Strange is a blast type, and blast types are not as applicable to every Shadowland stage the way that universals are. But it is going to help you because now Thanos can do hero stages. So your Thanos can do stage 15 of Shadowland or stage 25 of Shadowland, even though he's not a hero, because he can just rip off that bonus or that restriction and just do damage anyways. So that's a huge deal as far as the character goes. The other effect is the fact that he now has a flame skill in addition to the energy attacks from these skills. Prior to this, with his 5th skill, it was a very good damaging skills, but it was dealing physical damage, cosmic drop with all the meteors. That change to energy is primarily a good thing if you're someone who has a lot of energy attack on your cards. It also makes it better for Thanos with energy leaderships if you're not using Thanos' leadership. It will make him worse against World Boss Ultimate Proxima specifically, as we've touched on in another video, because she has higher energy defense. So in that sense, you will see Thanos struggle more than he did with his uniform, with his past uniform, which is kind of something that contradicts itself, but that's just the way it is for that particular boss. So that's where I think a lot of the additional controversy comes from. People are seeing Thanos struggle against World Boss Ultimate and they're confused. It's primarily because most of his damaging skills have been removed or changed from physical to energy, and that is why he's struggling. Once we get other World Boss Ultimates like Black Dwarf, he'll start to be a massive help. And I think the best way to illustrate his bump in damage is to compare his old uniform with this uniform for Extreme Alliance Battle. So for this uniform with his leadership, I'm actually going to switch teams so I don't use his leadership at all. But with this uniform, because I only have it ranked to rare, he's got less than 22,000 physical attack. You can see there 21, 6, 7, 8. Now this uniform, I pride myself on having ranked it up to Mythic and having most of his important stats also Mythic from the optional uniforms. This one, when I equip it, has a whopping 24,400, almost 25,000 physical attacks. That's a huge difference. And when you see the Extreme Alliance Battle scores, as I've been displaying them now for you, with his old uniform, I was only able to get 258,000 with my pretty aggressive rotation that I'm pretty sure closely mirrors what the pros were doing, you know, back when it was better than Dormammu before Anti-Man. And with this uniform, only at rare, with the same Obelisk, same ISO 8 set, I rocked 311,000. So I was able to get more than 50,000 points more with thousands less physical attack. And that should show you that in the long run, this uniform is going to far out DPS his old uniform, in addition to that very handy remove all buff effect for Shadowland and potentially for PvP modes. The last idea I want to leave you with, I haven't seen anyone discuss this or show any data on it, but it is possible that the new best Obelisk for Thanos may be one that includes fire damage. So potentially something like fire damage, crit damage, 200% proc. I don't know if that's going to be better than a CTP of energy or a CTP of destruction. Guard break immunity is still great for him, but it would be interesting if anyone has an Obelisk out there for Thanos and they've tried it. Let me know what you think. Anyways, those are my thoughts on all 3 uniforms. Hopefully that's been helpful to you and you've enjoyed this. Subscribe if you enjoyed the content and you want to support me. Hit the bell if you don't want to miss any of my content. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.